Hey, happy Friday. This week I learned that Microsoft is going to be making both a good and a bad version of Windows going forward. The Nothing Chats app became an unmitigated disaster, and OpenAI had the most insane week. Welcome to the Friday Checkout. This video was sponsored by our streaming service Nebula. This week we start the brief with Teenage Engineering, who launched yet another gorgeous-looking synth that I have no idea how to use, but somehow I still really want. It's called the EP133KO Mark II, and it costs $299. Next, the OnePlus 11 not only finally got Android 14, but it also came with Microsoft's Phone Link integration. This is something that only Samsung had among the big phone makers. It makes syncing with a PC super convenient, and I really hope that more brands will have it soon too. Then also this week, Sonos had its huge upcoming lineup leaked that includes high-end $400 plus headphones and a pair of earbuds as well, on top of a whole range of speakers and even a set-top box for some reason. Let's see how that goes. Also this week we learned that a secret deal with Google let Spotify completely bypass Android's App Store fees, meaning that while everyone pays 30%, the big boys definitely do not. And talking of Google, the company's Bard AI got a new feature in that it can now better understand YouTube videos. You can give it a link and ask a question about it, for example, how many eggs you'd need for a certain recipe. Wild! And while we're at AI, OpenAI now released ChatGPT via voice and audio for everyone, so you can try talking to it and even maybe turn your iPhone's action button into a button for the ChatGPT voice assistant. Nice! And moving on, the crypto exchange Binance was slapped with a $4.3 billion fine because it let groups like ISIS receive funds and facilitated 100,000 other suspicious transactions. That does not seem healthy, plus the company's co-founder also stepped down as the CEO after having pleaded guilty, which really puts an even uglier spin on crypto. And it's also Black Friday, for which I have two recommendations, both with links down in the description. First is that Cowboy, the maker of the e-bike that I personally ride, is giving 800 euros off many of their e-bikes in Europe, which is a pretty huge discount indeed. And second is not a deal, but instead the Insta360 Ace Pro, which has just launched. They sent me a review unit, and I can see three main party tricks for this. First is a proper flip-out screen, so you can finally see what you're shooting on an action camera. Second is a huge 1/1.3 inch sensor with a Leica lens on top for arguably the highest quality footage out of any action camera to date. And third is a generative AI tool that's built into the app itself that lets you apply some filters like this to your footage. That AI stuff is a bit of a gimmick, but the camera itself is very nice. Okay, and for my first story of the week, we got a bunch of updates that mean that Windows is likely going to be turned into a kind of good and a kind of bad version. So on the good side, Microsoft finally started complying with the EU's upcoming Digital Markets Act, which dictates that companies designated as gatekeepers shouldn't be allowed to force users into bundles that the users don't want, meaning that people in the European Economic Area should get powers like uninstalling Bing from the Start menu and even picking third-party search engines like Google or DuckDuckGo to integrate with search, but also uninstalling the Edge browser completely apart from its system components, or removing MSN from the widgets board on Windows 11, and even a promise that one's choice of default apps would actually be respected and left alone. Now that all sounds fantastic, but the problem is that Microsoft almost certainly will only push these changes through in Europe, while for the rest of the world they appear to be going into kind of the opposite direction. After Panos Panay left the company, the new team that took over most of Windows is what's called the Web Experiences team. That's the team that was in charge of things like Microsoft Weather, Microsoft Edge, Bing Search, Microsoft Start, the News app, the various shopping assistants, Microsoft Maps, etc. This team was combined with the Windows team and is now called the Windows and Web Experiences team. So the people who are in charge of the operating system are the same people who also want to use the operating system to push as many Microsoft services onto the users as possible, which means that outside of the European Union, it looks like Microsoft is going to become a lot more spammy. The very reliable Windows Central in their podcasts has even said that this is why Windows 10 is getting updates and new features like Copilot again all of a sudden, and it's also why the new team might even kill the idea of calling the next version of Windows Windows 12. The new team doesn't really care about what version of Windows people are on. They mostly care about as many Windows users using their services as possible, and so they might, instead of one big update, switch to many smaller and less disruptive updates. Okay, and for my second story of the week, we have to talk about the absolute embarrassment known as the Nothing Chats app. So last week, the company announced the Nothing Chats app, which would surprisingly bring iMessage and Blue Texts to its Nothing Phone 2. This was using the Sunbird messaging platform, which had the user log in with an Apple ID and then relayed all the chats through a remote Mac Mini. I already said last week that just the idea of giving your Apple ID to a new random company seems just wildly off to me from a security perspective, but Nothing said don't worry about it, it's all end-to-end encrypted. Well, turns out that was wrong too. As 9to5 Google points out, the app is a privacy nightmare with unencrypted messages and images. Security researchers like those at texts.blog found multiple simple and scary vulnerabilities of your data in transit and at rest too. They also found that your messages were, in fact, not end-to-end encrypted, as Sentry, the debugging platform that they used, had access to all of them, so management or any hacker with moderate skills could, in practice, read any individual message sent through the service. I've left a link to the detailed research down in the description, but it's basically grossly negligent at best, and at worst, it actually makes me question quite a lot of security practices that Nothing has. The app itself and also the video promoting it were both pulled for now, and I find both this thumbnail and the smug tweet where they somehow pretended that Apple adopted RCS because of them just even more infuriating given this context. Okay, and for my third story of the week, we have to talk about what happened at OpenAI this week. It's the most incredible news story at the very least, since Elon Musk bought Twitter. So, all in a matter of less than a week, Sam Altman was fired as the CEO of OpenAI by its board, who claimed that there was some wrongdoing, but then backed that up with no actual evidence. And then first, OpenAI's president, Greg Brockman, and then something like 97% of the company's employees said that the board was insane, and they'd rather all quit too if Sam had to go, and if the board decided to stay. Then Microsoft, as the organization's biggest investor, said, yeah, actually no, if anyone leaves, they will just hire them to Microsoft, where they will get access to their own tech again and just continue to work as before. And then when it became clear that nobody backed the board at all, the board itself was kicked out, and instead Sam was brought back to lead OpenAI as its CEO again. So if you think about it, the board basically ended up firing themselves, just in a very convoluted way. And I bet that this is what they must have felt like. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem, it's me. And while all of that was just hilarious and entertaining, I'm also somehow actually worried about what's going on here. Like, OpenAI had a non-profit board whose main job was to basically make sure that Sam and his team didn't build AI in a way that was ethically problematic or in a way that would end up basically killing us all. And when they fired Sam, they kind of quietly implied that that was happening here. But instead, they got yeeted out of the company and replaced with new people who will almost certainly not be pushing back against whatever Sam might be doing in the future. And so while the old board probably and almost certainly completely messed up in this, it also seems like there might be no guardrails going forward. So that's kind of weird. And talking about questionable decisions, I also have to explain one more thing, this time about our business, that is both deeply frustrating, but also really important for you to understand. So you might know that by now, the bundle of CuriosityStream and Nebula is actually coming to an end very soon. We stopped advertising it a long time ago, and in fact, my last CuriosityStream spot is almost a year old by now as well, and the bundle itself is expiring soon too. Specifically, CuriosityStream will stop sharing revenue with Nebula and us, the creators, at the end of this year, or about a month from now, meaning the end of the bundle as we know it. This is not a secret, it's something that CuriosityStream has long confirmed in their SEC filings to their investors, and yet they've also mass emailed their subscribers urging them to sign up for 2-year deals, and they've claimed both in their emails and in their public posts that those subscriptions will totally continue to get them access to other bundled services like Nebula. This is simply not accurate. It's also really frustrating for us, and my personal guess as to why they're doing this is that a lot of bundle subscriptions, I guess, are going to be expiring in November and in December, where they'll be up for renewal. So that's pretty uncomfortable in my opinion, but to try to fix this thing as much as we can, we here at Nebula have come up with 2 solutions. First, for those customers who have accidentally renewed their bundle subscription until the end of the year, we will continue to offer Nebula for 12 months from their subscription date anyway. This is entirely at our own expense. And second, for people who want to switch from the bundle to a direct Nebula subscription, which does in fact support us, we've also built a whole custom sign-up flow. It is go.nebula.tv/unbundle, which you can also click down in the description, and it's a special website where you log in with your existing Nebula account and add a payment method, but the trick is that you should only get charged once your CuriosityStream bundle lapses. So this way the switch should be as seamless as possible. A Nebula subscription is just $30 a year with this unbundled deal, or if you don't have Nebula yet, you can also go to my custom link at the description that will let you sign up as a new user for the same price. Either way, you can continue to support and enjoy our mission to be the best independent, ad-free and thoughtful video platform on the internet. Sorry for the mess, we're trying to clean it up as well as we can. Thank you very much for your continued support, and I'll see you next Friday.